Namaste. Welcome to the beginning of another live Sangha. I trust you are feeling as well as you can be in this moment. I'm grateful to be here for you. If there's anything I can do to hold space for what you're going through, I'd love to know how you're feeling, if you ever want to share. May we come together as fellow students of life to uplift each other, relate in one another's experiences, and share positive sentiments. Namaste, dear Bobals. Welcome. Divine Chan. Hello. Whatever one is going through in this moment, I hope you know that your feelings are always valid. What auspicious timing for us to meet here in the present, indeed, dear Bubbles. I do come here often. Yes, what about you? Hello, dear Sky Guardian G. Yes, all feelings are valid in this moment. And if you're going through any difficulties, know that this too shall pass. It's a frequent little haunt of yours. I understand. Takes one to know one. Namaskaram, dear Ragnhildur. You're funny, dear Sky Guardian. You are a good boson, a good fundamental particle, binding the building blocks of life together, delivering information, mediating interactions. Hello, dear John Simon and Jewel Jicky. Hello. Hello, dear Kate. Welcome, Hannah. Welcome. I'd like to start with a short invocation from the Taittiriya and Katha Upanishad. In Sanskrit, it goes like this. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karva Vahai Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvisha Vahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May the Divine protect us both together. May the Divine nourish us both together. May our studies be vigorous and effective, and may we not mutually dispute or hate any. Om. May there be peace in us. May there be peace in our environment, and may there be peace in the forces that act on us. That's right, dear Sky Guardian. We'll be starting our Shravana, the listening portion of our Sangha today, with a poem that your friend sent us. Venkatesh. Shiva should star in a L'Oreal commercial, shouldn't he? Hello, dear Emily. Hello, dear Lumi. Om, sweet Om. I love that. Thank you, John Simon, for the heart me and rose you sent. Starting off with a blessing already in our Sangha today. Radhe, oh Radhe. Hello, dear Usha Priyaji. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, dear Spicy Gnome. Grateful to have you here. What is the etymology of gnome? I'd like to know that. I wonder if it's related to Gnosticism, Gnosis. Dear Ashley, thank you for your heart me. Hariom Tat Sat. And dearest Tattvamasi, thank you for your quintet of roses. Jayan Sargadatta Maharaj. Namaste, Inevitable. Hello, Jam. Those would be pronounced genomes. Genomes. That's good. And what kind of genomes does a genome have? Where do they trace their genetics? Oh, not genomes. Gnomes, like Gnostic. I see. Hello, dear Derek, and thank you for your tiny. Gnomes, like Gnostic. I see. Hello, dear Derek, and thank you for your tiny. My viewers, when my internet connection has successfully returned to you, please let me know, as I believe it disconnected for a moment. We're back, thank you. John Simon, you are in need of a good rest. I understand, yes. I had a little difficulty sleeping myself last night. It's good to have a good routine. Well, I hope to make sure the space is calming for you, and if you end up resting a little, either in spirit, mind, or body while you're here, that would be an honor. And hello, dear Renvox. All is A-OK, indeed. Thank you. How are you? That depends, dear Bradlands. What kind of magic doth thou speak of? Thank you, Ashley, for the hand hearts you sent as well. Om Khan Jahnavyai Namah. Tattvamasi, you share that gnomes are a mythical race, a very small people said to inhabit parts of Ethiopia and India. Interesting. It's kind of hot where you are, but you're not complaining, dear Renvox. I'm happy to hear that it's content for you over there. So as I said, I'd love to begin with a poem sent in by a friend of a viewer for our show and tell. This comes from Venkatesh, who gives us a poem called Sorrow. And I'm just going to turn down the music a little bit so that you can really hear it. I'll do my best to give my rendition of it with the author's original intentions. I can hope, at least. So it's called Sorrow, and I'd love for you to listen to it with me. I'll begin. The one emotion that seems to be persistent since childhood days is the ache that my heart endures and never goes away. Moments of happiness come and go like the bubbles of ocean spray that settle on the sandy beach. In moments they fizzle away. A walk amidst the giant trees lifts my weary spirits high. Oh, why even does this majesty bring tears to my eye? I look around the world to see that this is not just me. It seems to be ingrained in every person's quest for joy. How can the destination be so opposed to the goal? It makes no sense to this broken heart, this weather-torn rustic soul. A song then plays a pleading tune, singing praises to the Lord, as sorrow finds its resonance, the natural frequency of my heart. I sink deep into this feeling then, and sit down to meditate to an ancient mantra softly sung for my weary heart's sake. When all the deep meanings swell without a word to say, and stay with that which still remains when everything else falls away. I take a sip of coffee when I reflect on what went by. That morning when I was absorbed, was it sorrow or was it joy? A tingling sense in the fingertips, warmed by the rising sun. I was the one looking on, unaffected by either one. Thank you for listening to this poem by Venkatesh. Sorrow. I really enjoyed that. I'm very grateful that they sent it in as per the request of their friend and mutual Sanghi. Sky Guardian. Beautiful, shares Regnehilder. I found it beautiful too. Wowzers, shares Bubbles. Stunning, shares Lala Michelle. Oh, I'm glad you guys liked it. Very beautiful. I agree, Usha Priya. Thank you for listening, everyone. That concludes our show and tell. If ever you have something you want to share, do check out the show and tell submission form in the link tree in the bio. Namaste. We'll go from there into reading the next chapter from the journey home shortly, but I wanted to welcome everyone who joined while we were reading. And thank you, John Simon, for the finger heart you had sent. Hare Krishna. And Talita, thank you for your heart me. Om Dum Durgaya Namah. Bubbles, you share, you hope when civilization falls, it's art like that remains. How beautiful. Tatomasi, on our subject of gnomes, you share it does come from nomis, or Greek gnosis. I had a suspicion. Which ultimately stems from the Sanskrit jnana, which means knowledge or knowing wisdom. So a gnome, therefore, etymologically, is like that of a jnani, one who possesses knowing wisdom. Becca, you had asked, how would I personally interpret or relate to that poem? To me, it seems there's a deep connection being made between the ecstasy of allowing sorrow to come through and feelings of joy. I think it's a common experience that we often don't associate feelings like sadness with happiness. In fact, some people put them as diametrically opposite features of life, that happiness is an absence of sadness and sadness is an absence of happiness. However, I, much like the author, can relate to the fact that happiness and sadness need not be mutually exclusive. I think, for example, everyone who's ever had a child knows how you can feel sad and happy to bring a child into this world at the same time. Or if you end up marrying someone, that you may cry. And is it tears of joy or sorrow? Sometimes it's hard to tell. A little bit of both, or maybe a lot of bit of both. Love is pain. Pain is love. I know what you mean, Lala Michelle. Yeah. Love is a beautiful suffering. But I'm doing well. Thank you for asking, dear Lala Michelle. How are you? Like melancholy. Yeah. Like melancholy. Dear Regnhildur. I'm reminded also of what Ram Dass had said about, on one hand, I am grieving for the pain of the whole world. And on the other hand, I am rejoicing in the beauty and love in the whole world. At the same time, I am equally heartbroken as I am at peace. I'm paraphrasing, something like that at least. You are a binding glue between so many communities, dear Sky Guardian. Yeah, I know what you mean too, dear Becca. I do believe it is important for our parents to share some of their feelings with us, especially because that helps them share their feelings also. If you can create that mutual correspondence between parent and child where, I tell you a little bit about what I'm going through and how I'm able to process those feelings, then the child can mirror that too. No, I've never read that, dear user. But given that it shares a theme in your username, it must be something important to you. I love that, Bubbles. Your heart breaks over and over again at the horrible beauty of it all. Yes. And you share, your son is your best friend, and you share everything with him. That's so beautiful. What a lovely dynamic you have. My best wishes for you and your son. Oh, the dual nature of love. I thank you for your heartfelt sharing, everyone. Yeah. It's so important that we build that binding link between generations so that our emotions don't get caught up temporally. That it flows. Thank you for your follow, dear Troxy Rock. Alright, I wanted to read with you the 10th chapter. Here, we'll see how long it is, if we can read the whole thing. Seems to be a longer chapter. Maybe we'll break it up into 2 parts. Of The Journey Home, Autobiography of an American Swami. He is, where is he now? He was in Iran. But then he crossed the border into Afghanistan on his way to India. So, let's continue from there, shall we? May this reading relax your mind and awaken your heart. This is the 10th chapter. On the back of a truck piled high with burlap sacks of grain, I reached the border of Afghanistan. The shabbiness of the immigration post signaled the poverty of the nation, yet the immigration officials offered a cordial welcome, quite different from most other border guards I'd experienced thus far. My first stop in Afghanistan was Herat. The people here were charming and friendly. In the stark desert terrain, they wore raggedy, dusty clothing and lived in shambled dwellings. Although they were the poorest people I had seen in my travels yet, everyone I passed offered a smile, and no one asked me for anything. On the contrary, they were eager to share what little they had. Each day in Herat, I was invited into their homes. Usually, a family lived in a hut of one small room. They joyfully shared their flat bread with mine. My hosts could neither read nor write, yet so many of them struck me as both humble and wise, living with dignity the tribulations of their life. Although they spoke not a word of English, the communication of the heart that we shared was especially satisfying to me. On a winter day in 1970, a small tea stall in Herat, I wrote a letter home. Hello, my family. How is life? I am now in Herat, Afghanistan. It is amazing to be here in a country with people that are naturally friendly and humble, poor but peaceful. I know it is late, but I will still wish a happy birthday to Dad and Larry. I wish you the very best of everything. With love, Richard. Early one morning, I innocently set out to explore the town of Herat and stumbled into a neighborhood unlike any I had ever experienced. 'Twas late morning as I stood on a dusty roadside and observed my surroundings, at first enjoying the sights. Looking around, I was transported into a realm of timeless simplicity. My heart pounded. Camel after camel sauntered by. There were no sounds of horns or modern vehicles, only camel hooves clacking on an earthen road. Families were crowded into tiny one-story houses made of dried mud. A pungent taste of arid dust dried in my mouth, and the smell of camel excrement and burning wood assaulted my nose. People chatted while squatting on the roadside, dressed in their traditional Afghani clothing. Their loosely fitting garments were elegant though faded and tattered with wear. Men wrapped long sheets of cloth around their heads as turbans, and many had faces riddled with deep blotches, scars made by smallpox. Like aged leather, their skin was dried and toughened by the elements, and huge, spontaneous smiles revealed rotting or missing teeth. Baggy shirts extended below their knees as they performed their chores, apparently with no concern for the time. Women covered their faces with a fine mesh and wore blue or black gowns that reached from the top of their heads down to the ground, leaving no trace of their bodies visible. A blind man sat on the road singing religious songs in a high voice as he thumped the skin of a drum. It was cold, but smoke from cooking fires filled the air. Suddenly, quite unexpectedly, I was literally brought to my knees by culture shock. My eyes burned from the smoke. I felt dizzy and nauseated, deeply disoriented and afraid. All at once, I found it impossible to identify with anything my five senses perceived. Utterly alienated, my ego succumbed to a painful breakdown. On my knees, sweating with emotion, I struggled to connect something to the world that I knew. I failed. I felt totally disconnected. Although the dire poverty was disheartening, the people of Herat appeared to be the happiest, most carefree people I'd ever seen. This surreal combination of poverty and happiness short-circuited my intellect. Old men sat on the roadside smoking from large water pipes. The scent of the arid desert dust blended with the acrid, I don't know how to pronounce this word, aroma of hashish. The sights, smells, and sounds were disconcertingly foreign to my senses. I was alone in a culture where nothing existed that I could relate to. As I sat motionless on that roadside, a lonely alien in a distant universe, I prayed to be spared from this confusion. What was happening to me? What was the cause of this bewilderment? Why was I so affected? I grappled to find myself. From birth, I'd identified with my external surroundings. Not until this moment could I fathom the extent to which I had been conditioned. Just as wearing green-colored glasses tinges everything we see as green, so according to our surroundings and experiences, we have a particular perception of reality. The conceptions perceived by my body and mind had become my identity. Now those familiar conceptions had evaporated, casting me into a void. God, please help me. Who am I? Who am I? Who really am I? The world around me seemed to disappear as my prayer and meditation transported me into a state where a silent inner presence predominated over the phenomenal world. There I discovered a precious truth, a truth that awakened a sense of shelter and freedom. I am the soul, distinct from the world of externals, a child of God. The blaze of culture shock had acted like the rays of the sun to dissipate the fog of misconception. I felt liberated. Flooded with gratitude, I knew that Herat would forever remain a sacred place on the map of my heart. Whenever I look back to that day, I am reminded how prayers may be answered in ways we never expect. To grow may require that we be shaken right to our core. While kneeling on that roadside in Herat, something died within me, giving birth to a realization necessary for me to move forward on my path. With each step, a camel lifts its hoof from a stable place on earth in order to move forward. And to reach the sea, each ripple of the river must let go of its present state to surrender to the current. As I walked back to my room, I came upon an aged man slumped on the roadside. Beneath his head wrap was a face defined with deep crevices and sagging with wrinkles. His toothless smile was radiant as he waved for me to share the hashish in his hookah. Smiling, I politely declined. His culture had already given me a high I prayed never to forget. Let's pause our reading there for now. Thank you for listening. I look forward to unfold the adventures of our dear author with you next time. I invite any insight that you may have had as we listened on embracing transformative release, trusting in the journey that unfolds before us, celebrating newfound inner freedom, especially when we least expect it. Namaste. That concludes our Shravana, the beginning portion of our Sangha dedicated to listening from new perspectives. Let me transition now into a manana, where we can process our experiences together. We can turn our attention to anything in our hearts and minds, and I welcome everyone that joined while we were reading. That was a lovely story. I'm happy to hear that, dear Becca. I love all the different cultural exchanges in that book. I like that Tattvamasi. The likes in this live, you were trying to identify which one was yours, when it spawned and when it faded away. All the hearts were the same one love towards the Sangha. It's beautiful. Namaste, dear Garrett. Hello, dear Donzuela. Lovely to have you here too. Hello, Damian Crossfires. And thank you for sharing the live, Ragnhildur. Hello, dearest Magdalene Priya. Radhe, Radhe. I love that some exchanges transcend culture, dearest Becca. Dear Spinudha, you ask if depression is organic, mostly, then should we just live with it? We can look at many of these words in two ways. Let's cover them. Organic, yes, there's absolutely a sense in which it's natural for a person to undergo these things, or at the very least common and normal. But there's a lot of things in our society which may trigger it, which we should be working towards substituting. Like, for example, a less stigmatized world when it comes to mental health and all the neurodivergence that exists in the world. I think we have a lot more naturalization to undertake, but I see the sense in which it's a part of many of our journeys. Now, should we just live with it? Well, if you mean live with it in the sense that we should accept its presence with a kind of unconditional awareness, hold space for it, not judge yourself for it, then absolutely, yeah. However, we should definitely work towards having a better relationship with our mental health. And if there are things we can do, like getting counseling, therapy, maybe psychiatry, developing more interpersonal depths of friendship, being more transparent with friends and family, setting boundaries with people that might be disturbing our peace, then of course all of those things should be pursued as well. Hola, dear Mariham. It can be quite debilitating. Absolutely. Yeah. The smallest things become victories if you're depressed. Just getting out of bed can be, a worthy accomplishment that you can genuinely be proud of yourself for, especially if it's quite intense for you. Just being here can be a worthy accomplishment. The fact that you're still alive sometimes is enough. That's amazing. Given what some people go through, and the fact that their heart continues to beat, they continue to breathe, they continue to just live, whatever that looks like for them, that inspires me, truly. Some people have gone through hell and yet still find a way to make it through every day, despite the traumas that they've faced. I'm grateful that they're still here. Grassfires, you share getting out of bed is something you're definitely proud of yourself for. I'm happy to hear that. Dear Becca, thank you for your finger heart. Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya. Hello, dear Enzo. You ask, how does one learn to not believe their thoughts? I think it's about changing the relationship from one of belief to one of like a selection. Your thoughts are like a menu. We might not get to choose what's on the menu, but of what's on the menu, we can choose what we want to experience. So if a thought arises, you can ask yourself, is this a thought that I want to continue experiencing? If not, leave it be. Just wait until another menu option arises. I was watching Inception for the first time last night, and I really like one quote that stood out to me, which is the idea of that not all thoughts come from us, that people can implant their thoughts in us just by being around them, just by conversing with them. And the example, of course, is try not to think of an elephant. Now, of course, what are you thinking of when I tell you to not think of an elephant? You are thinking of an elephant. Did that thought come from you? No, I'm quite confident that you probably weren't thinking of an elephant before I mentioned that, unless you were thinking about Ganesha. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namah. In the same way, I think our minds are like carousels of thoughts that go from person to person in this world. Energy flows. We are just caretakers of thoughts, and we get to choose which thoughts we want to continue harboring, hold space for. And that's our relationship to them. Dear Renvox, thank you for your rosa. Om Harim Namah Shivaya. Dearest Bubbles, I like your question. When you write something down, do you blame the pen for the words? Beautiful. And you're proud of every one of us. Thank you. Dear Nervous, if you may ask, what happened to all the videos about protons, neutrons, God particles, etc.? I privated many of my videos due to developments in my personal life. I still have a love for particle physics and all that stuff, but I do have a very different intention for where I want to take my internet presence. I hope you understand. If you want to learn more about that, there's a frequently asked questions document in the link tree in my bio. I haven't updated it in a while, but I think it still holds true to what I was going through. I'm very grateful that so many of you enjoyed, so many people like you enjoyed those videos, and I enjoyed making them. But there's something else in my journey going forward, and I wish to respect my own intentions with how I express myself. Dear crossfires, you tell your thoughts that you're the master and you will choose what you want to believe. I like that. Yeah. The mind is a terrible master, but an excellent servant. Spinudha, you ask, what do I think about the rage for the world? I really empathize with that. There's so much in the world that has so much room to improve. And the disconnect is enormous between what could be possible and what hasn't been, you know? What all the promises and what hasn't been, what could be and what is. I totally understand how that would develop into a kind of anger or rage. And I've felt that. I've been angry at the world for all that it's done to others and people like myself. But at some point I realized that my own anger was my own poison. Yes, it's full of passion and you can channel that passion and those feelings are valid. But ultimately it took away from my own life. It only added more challenges in my life. You can solve things with anger, yeah. But then you create 100 other problems. It's like programming. You solve one bug in your code and then 99 other bugs show up that you have to solve. Anger is a powerful force, and it can be a source of standing up for the vulnerable. You know, like when a mother protects her children. If there was ever an attacker, that mama bear would come out. And there becomes a divine protective field for her dependents. But when it's used to cross other people's boundaries, then we end up getting ourselves into trouble and causing even more things in the world for others to be angry about. And what do we want? Do we want to bring more anger into this world or more peace? Whatever it is, we have to create that inside first. If we want to make the world a more peaceful place, we have to make this part of the world a more peaceful place. Yeah. Ultimately, we have to recognize the space between the emotion and us, that we are not the emotion. The emotion arises within this mind-body system. But who is the one experiencing the emotion? Who gets to decide what you do with that emotion? Do you let the outside world decide that for you? Or do you want to take conscious charge of that? Dear Becca, you share, this is why we need to be mindful. What am I doing and why? What am I thinking and how helpful? Yeah, I love that addition. Hello, Galena. Anger can make your body sick. Definitely, literally. Yeah. Did I ever see the new documentary about telepathy, asks Becca. No, I have not. But thank you for planting the seed. We are all like radios, dear Gwendolyn Priya. We all get to choose what station we want to tune into, what frequency. And thank you for understanding, Canervez. It does not matter if the world is not improving. What matters is if we are improving. If we are improving, then that's our responsibility to the world. The best thing that you can give the world for its overall improvement is to be a role model of what you want to see in it. And let me tell you, that spreads like a wildfire. when you ignite the passion of kindness within you, that spreads into the hearts of everyone around you. Even if their conscious mind doesn't change, their subconscious begins to. The free bumblebee, you ask, what is my favorite tantric text, if I have any? I've only read one, and that's the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, which is an esoteric teaching between Bhairava and Bhairavi, two fearsome forms of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, respectively Shiva and Shakti, Rudra and Uma. There we enumerate 112 pathways to enlightenment, and they're all very simple. Simple meditations that you can do. Certain breathing techniques, certain visualizations. For example, you can imagine your right leg being consumed by fire, and then that fire overtaking your whole body. And imagine what that feels like. A genuine pathway to enlightenment. That's the nature of Tantra, though. It's very esoteric, often abstract, and perhaps unhelpful to some people, but very inviting and perfect for a select few who like to travel that uncharted territory. Hello, dear KL. From Greenland. Ah, lovely to have Greenlandish viewers. Dear Madokuplad, you ask if I can please make guided meditation videos on YouTube. Thank you. I do have many on YouTube already. At the end of all of our live streams, we end with a meditation. Well, most of them, like 90% of our live streams, they end with a meditation. Many of them are guided meditations, and all of them are uploaded to the meditations playlist on my YouTube channel. There's about 200 or more there now, so you've got many hours of meditation if you want to explore that. You're on a tantric journey, shares the free bumblebee. Well, I wish you success. I know there will be success for you. Yes. Thank you for your follow, dear Kiel. We've got a Greenlandic viewer and an Icelandic viewer. I love that. Thank you for your likes on the live, dear Marcy. Never expected, but I know that they reach they help the live reach a wider audience, which is up to you. If you feel there's value here in this space, I'd love to give you the opportunity to push the live to a wider audience. I can't control that, so it's up to you. But I'm happy with the number of people we have here. I'm always content with how big or how small the space is. When it's nice and concise, we can get very personal, which is nice. I like that. And thank you, Marcy, for your heart me. Om Tham Namaschandraya. I am pure love, shares Mariham. Thank you for seeing my essence. It's the same for you. And it's not just a poetic thing to say. You are love. I used to try to wrap my head around that as a kid, and I couldn't make sense of it. What does it mean to be love? The older I get, the more literal I understand this to be. That you are not this body and mind which sleeps, decays, and dies. You are the immortal love that traverses the earth and skies. And I have love for you all too, dear Crossfires. And thank you, BM5x5. Only your love survives. Indeed, dear Bubbles. Hello, B Castle. Or is that Castle? Yes, it is, I think. If I can read your unique font. Dear Rick, you watch me from Mexico. And you really appreciate what I share. Well, thank you. And all the service I give. Well, I am a humble servant. Well, you can keep me humble. I suppose it wouldn't be very humble if I called myself humble. I hope to be a humble servant of you. That's the ultimate goal in my life. Seva. Dear Madhukublad, you ask, if possible to answer, what would I suggest in manifestation? You are a love distribution network. Or you are part of a love distribution network. This universe loves to bless you if you bless others with your blessings too. People who hoard their resources, they may gain in material value, but they will decrease in the love in their heart and ultimately end up unhappy. But those who share what they have with others, the universe continues to bless them with love, people to love, and things to help them spread that love. If you can signal to the universe that you are a good distributor of that love, then you will have more and more and more of that in your life too. So manifest love in your life. Not romantic love necessarily. Unconditional divine love that comes in every conceivable form. And if you want to empower your Icha Shakti, which is the Sanskrit term for the power for manifestation, cultivate gratitude and a sense of abundance. The more you feel like you already have everything, the more you invite into your life. There's a beautiful poetic irony there, that those who feel like they have everything already and need nothing will be given the whole universe. Is that agape? That's right, Marcy. Agape love. Unconditional. Thank you, dear Usha Priyaji, for your hand hearts and 33 roses. And by the way, on the subject of sharing one's blessings with each other, I do want to clarify. When I say that, I don't mean with me, but predominantly with each other, especially those in your life. But thank you very much, dear Usha Priyaji. Om Ham Jum So Namah Shivaya. Dear KL, you have a word for meditation in Greenlandic. I would love to know what it is, if you could teach me. I imagine it might be difficult to phoneticize through the comment section. Thank you, dear Becca, for the hand hearts you sent to him. Om Mani Padme Hum. Dear Spinudha, you ask, if time is eternal, do I think every possibility is 100% guaranteed to happen? That's an excellent question. In a single universe? No, actually, because as far as we know, there are various levels of infinity. Various levels of infinity, some infinities much larger than others. For a single universe, the infinity that describes time is called Aleph 1. It's also known as the cardinality of the continuum. It's probably the second smallest infinity, although we don't actually know if there's an infinity between that and the definite smallest infinity, which is Aleph Naught, or the cardinality of the integers. This is some high-level set theory. So in set theory, the level of infinity that describes time is cardinality of the continuum, the second smallest infinity that we know of, unless there's things to say about the continuum hypothesis, which is a whole other box of frogs that I don't want to get into. What is the infinity that describes all possible events? Well, let me tell you, it is bigger than the cardinality of the continuum. How much bigger? You know, is it the next infinity? Is it 10 infinities bigger? Is it 100? Is it 1,000,000? Well, it probably doesn't surprise you to say that it's not only infinitely bigger than the infinity of time. In fact, it's beyond infinity. There's kind of 3 different classifications for the size of something. It can be finite, it can be infinite, and there's actually a 3rd class which is bigger than any infinity. This is a beautiful and mind-blowing fact in set theory, that there are things beyond even the infinities go on infinitely, but yet beyond all of the infinitely many infinities, there's something else. It's called Cantor's paradox. It's related to Russell's paradox, if you're familiar with that. Cantor's paradox states that there's no infinity big enough that even describes how many levels of infinity there are. Therefore, it's a class which is beyond infinity itself. And that's how many possible events are. It's that class of trans-infinite possibilities. So within a single universe, no, even if that universe has a cardinality of the continuum, an infinite amount of time. So you'd have to open up multiverses in order to possibly answer that question. Multiverses, parallel timelines, and cycles of creation that take place on even larger scales of infinity. Now that is a truly incomprehensible idea. But in theory, if you accept all of that, then yes, everything that could happen will happen, just not necessarily in this universe. Namaste, dear Phoenix Sunlight. So Kiel, you share, the word for meditation in Greenlandic translates to something like drifting away, mind wandering-ish. I like that. Yeah. That does sound like meditation, indeed. Little Bopper, you ask a very good question. If infinity has no end, then how can there be various scales? Right? Yeah, excellent question. It's amazing. It was surprising to mathematicians when they first discovered that too. So infinity is the limit of various finite sequences. You can imagine that applies like a fractal on another level too. That there are sequences of infinities also. Just as there's no largest finite number, you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, etc. There's no largest infinity either. You can always get higher orders of infinity. You can prove this through what's called an isomorphism. Biconditional. How do you prove that one thing is bigger than another thing? Good question. Mathematicians thought really hard about this. How do you prove that one thing is bigger than another thing? The simple answer is you count them. And if you run out of things to count in one group first, then that's the smaller one. So you come up with a system for counting in one group and then another, and whatever one you run out of first, that is the smaller one. Or if you end up stopping at the same time, that they are the same size. So mathematicians wanted to try to find a bigger version of this for infinities, for collections of objects that were infinite in size. They wanted to ask, is the number of whole numbers the same infinity as the number of integers? It's a very interesting question, because all of the whole numbers are integers. The whole numbers are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. But the integers contain that and all of the negative numbers, -1, -2, -3, -4. So it seems like that would be a bigger infinity, because it contains even more. But actually they're the same size, because you can come up with a counting system that enumerates all of them one by one. You go 0, 0, 1, 1, and then you go 1, -1, 2, 2, 3, -3, 4, 4, etc. I think I double spoke or whatever. But you can pair up each whole number with each negative number, even though the whole numbers are a subset of the integers. Obviously, you do this not through just spoken words like I'm doing here, but through expressed mathematical formula, and you come up with a consistent result. But when it comes to all of the numbers on the number line, you could never come up with such a biconditional relationship, a one-to-one mapping. Suppose you wanted to just enumerate the numbers in between 0 and 1. What do you start with? Okay, you start with 0, sure. But then what's the next number after 0? There isn't one. You could say 0.1, but there's something in between that and 0. You could say 0.01, but there's something in between that and 0. No matter how small of a non-zero number you get, there's always another number between 0 and that number. So if you try to line up all of the whole numbers with all of the numbers just between 0 and 1, you will run out, theoretically, of the whole numbers before you run out of the real numbers between 0 and 1. There's just infinitely more real numbers than there are whole numbers. So those are the two smallest infinities. The cardinality of whole numbers, which is a countable infinity. You could theoretically go through all of them one by one. And then there's the cardinality of the continuum. All the numbers between 0 and 1 and the like. You could never run out of counting those one by one. So our counting systems fail. And you can prove that all possible pairings would somehow leave one out. So mathematicians were shocked. They didn't expect that, honestly. Like most people's intuition, it fails at the level of infinity. And we feel like infinity is infinity. But actually no, infinity is not just infinity. Infinity is a whole class of different kinds of things. Some of them bigger than others. Thank you, dear Rahina, for the heart me that you had sent. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Oh, the diversity of personalities on TikTok. How interesting. What is your genuine question, dear Floyd? Dear little bopper, you share these numbers have very little relevance in our life unless we're in math class. You'd be surprised, as Bubble said. Indeed, when we're at our job, it's very rare that we actually need to calculate the size of various infinities. But the theoretical importance when it comes to expanding your mind into these ideas is unlike any other. It is through these mathematical forms that I discovered spirituality, and I have to thank my mathematical journey for leading me to that infinite source. The more I studied these infinities, the more I began to be acquainted with what that source of everything truly is, and I got just the scent of a flavor of that infinite power to bring existence into being. And that is what we ultimately come from and have to understand. If we recognize that we are that infinite source in part and parcel, then our existence here is not just a mundane human life where you live, study from school, get a job, get married, and die, but an eternal process of spirit coming into form, the zero through the finite into the infinite, and that everything we do is but an expression of that divine. Then this moment becomes a lot more meaningful. And I hope to take you on that journey with me, if you consent. Rahina, you share that silliness is all that you can be in this cruel world. You'd rather remain joyous, despite the firestorm. Indeed. Marcy, you can relate with math and science leading you to a more spiritual connection too. I'm happy to hear that. Marcy, you can relate with math and science leading you to a more spiritual connection too. I'm happy to hear that. And Becca, you share, it is math that speaks through us, and it is our interpretation that brings it life and meaning. That does though. Nice to see you, dear Michael. I do love my math. One of the many languages of the universe. Up there with Sanskrit for the title of a universal language. And music, too. Thank you, Inevitable, for your trio of roses. Om Kring Kali Gai Namah. Dear Becca, thank you for your finger heart as well. Om Namah Shivaya. It's getting quadratic up in here. I believe it was the great Indian and spiritual mathematician Ramanujan who said that an equation means nothing to me if it does not express a thought of God. He was very successful with that. His contemporaries said that Ramanujan was also a friend of every number. He was best friends, in fact, with every single number. Which leads me to my question of the day. Today I ask of you, what is an infinite area of improvement when it comes to what we can do for our friends? I'll let you think about it. Remember that I'm not looking ever for any particular answer. So feel free to share whatever makes sense to you. In the meantime, Sherlock, you ask, would I prefer one 2-part assignment or 2 1-part assignments? What's the difference? Bubbles, you share the work on the self. It's all we can do. Indeed. The best thing we can do for our friends is be a kinder person, a wiser person, a stronger person, a more loving person, a more knowledgeable person, etc. All of that is something we work on ourselves for. Self-love too, shares Kia. Unconditional love or self-love, shares Becca. Indeed. Jocelyn, you share, seek to understand them. Yes. And will we ever truly understand all that there is to know about the infinitude of our beings? I sure hope not. Sky Guardian, you point out that sometimes it seems like a lot of work. Maybe it's easier to not have friends. I think it's a lot harder to not have friends in life. Friends make everything easier. You did annoy Anna and pressure her to share the video with her guru. And what an honor it was for that to happen. I'm so grateful I got to experience that through her. The more Sangis we have who have gurus from many places, the more inclusive of a space we can have to the vast array of spiritual traditions around the world. Regina, you share you can infinitely improve your grilled cheese skills to feed them. I love that. That's great. These are wonderful. Practicing self-love has been a nice one. Being curious, staying present with them. Our friendships nurture our community. Ragnahildur, you share improving empathy and understanding. Yeah, I like that. Dearest Gwendolyn Priya, you share friends are gifts we give to ourselves. Oh, beautiful. Well said. Mariham, you choose very carefully your friends because you're unconditional. What a great boundary you've set for yourself. Yeah. When you know that when you love, you give your whole heart, it's good to be careful where you give that love to. Good evening, hot commodities. Yamalam. Thank you for sharing the live, Jewel. Crossfires, you share, just share positive energy. Yeah. Dansuela Priya, you share offering them the same love, compassion, and safety to be themselves as they offer you. Mirroring all that they give us. Yeah. Little Bopper, you share, lift them up, even when we are down. It's funny how when we lift others up, we can lift ourselves up with them too. We can lift them up and then they extend a hand and pull us up with them too. Just their company, shares Kiel. I like that. Namaste, dear Anazak. And thank you for your heart, mate. Om Dum Durgai Namah. I'm down for lifting my friends up. Welcome, MD. Yeah. It is a skill in life to learn how to set boundaries, and boundaries are never a punishment. They're never something that takes away from the relationship with another person, despite their qualms, perhaps. Quails, I should say. However, it's actually quite the contrary. Boundaries are proof that I'm willing to have you in my life, that I want to have some relationship with you, and this is what I'm willing to deepen my connection with you for, assuming we respect that. Rahina, you share that boundaries are an interesting topic you were meditating on the other day. Property markers versus a 30-foot wall. Yeah. Mm-hmm. A 30-foot wall may be good at keeping each other out, but it's also good at keeping us in. Property markers, on the other hand, show us where our boundaries are. And if we can add to that an alarm system or some kind of defense system, ways of handling someone crossing that property marker, then that's even better. Sky Guardian, you share, you mean if I didn't put infinite, then you'd be more willing to have friends, but infinite improvement, way too much work. I understand the way that question comes across to you. I think of it as an inspiring thing, that I never want to run out of things to improve on. Because improvement isn't something that I see as exhausting, but a purpose in life. There's something I can grow in, learn about, heal from, change for. That's wonderful. I would never want to run out of those things, because that's what life is all about. That's karma yoga. It's not about all you have to do in the future. It's about the continual things that we can do in this moment now. I hope to never run out of that seva. Your mom, you share mindfulness or understanding in reference to our question of the day. Sadhu. Mm-hmm. Anna, you point out that online friends are low maintenance friendships. Most of the time. Mm-hmm. Gwendolyn Priya, you share a quote from J.M. Barrie. When you pour your sunshine on others, you cannot help but spill some on yourself. I love that. Mm-hmm. You're allowed to be exactly where you are, little bopper. Everything you need is in this moment. You're never separate from that. Thank you, Lord of Lords, for sharing the live too. Welcome, dear Dean. Your heart is so heavy. Your heart is very deep. You can hold a lot in it. Mm-hmm. If you ever want to empty it out, you're allowed to pour from it here. Thank you for liking the live, dear Dean. I'm going to pause our exploration of the question of the day there for now. Thank you for exploring it with me. I love all the different answers that you've shared. Thank you so much. There's growth in every moment. May we see our friendship as a kind of seva, selfless service. Let's spill sunshine on others generously. And live karma yoga, the yoga of a prayerful action. Thank you, Julian. Cornelius, you share, when you ask yourself who you are always left unsatisfied. And that is the nature of your infinite self, is that you are so complete, so full of possibilities that you can never run out of things to do when it comes to embracing that true nature of yourself. On one hand, you can see that as a deficit. On the other hand, you can see it as an infinite potential to grow in your own relationship with yourself. And when you look at it in the latter perspective, it becomes a blessing. That I have come so far in terms of understanding, accepting, and loving myself. And yet, I could never run out of things to understand and love and accept about myself. Therefore, this all leads me to the conclusion that this self must be beyond anything I can even imagine. Dear Hybrid Jen, you never read the question of the day. You didn't notice it was up sometimes till I say I took it down. Well, that's okay. All of our attention flows in different ways. Perhaps you were focused more on other aspects of the space, and that's always allowed to. Dear Becca, you ask, what's my favorite thing about myself? My favorite thing about myself is that I have no favorite thing about myself. That I love each aspect equally. Dear Cornelius, you ask if I have experienced Satori. In fact, I've never experienced anything other than Satori. That state of expanded consciousness is what we all experience. Truly. Each moment is a Satori. We just don't recognize it to be, because we feel like it must come with some stereotypical archetype, that the heavens open up and fireworks go off and the sun is radiating in its ember warmth, or that the person that we've been dreaming of arrives and their love fills us up. But you can feel all of the feelings you might expect from that here in this moment. Your true existence is Sat Chit Anandam, the eternal and unending bliss. Akarlo, you ask, if the moon betrays the sunlight, which should we enjoy more? The moon reflects the sunlight, it does not betray it. The moon is a complementary celestial body to our sun, whereas the sun represents a stable source of light. The moon represents the changing and dynamic reflection of that light. It is the divine masculine and the divine feminine, respectively. We have to have both in life, that stable source and that spontaneous and unending dance of energy. Prakriti and Purusha, the dance of material nature and primordial consciousness. The sun represents our consciousness, and the mind represents the moon. The consciousness is ever illuminating, and the mind ever changing in its phases. Confusion only arises when we misconstrue the moon for the sun, the mind for the consciousness. But when we understand these two as distinct, they each have an important role to play in our world. It is said that we get energy from the sun, but we get soma, the nectar of immortality, from the moon. Such is why the ancient rishis meditated on moonlight as amrita in their mantra. Om Som Somaya Namah. Thank you, dear Gwendolyn Priya, for your ice cream cone. Om Som Suryaya Namah. And Truth Seeker, thank you for your heart meme. Om Aim Saraswatyai Namah. Hybrid Jen, you vibrated once staring at the moon non-stop. I know the feminine is very perceptive to the moon. It's beautiful. Hello, dear loves. I may not be a warrior that stands guard with a sword and shield, but I hope to acquire the sword of wisdom and the shield of love, and pierce through the inner enemies of lust, anger, avarice, conceit, and protect myself in the world from its alluring desires. I never took Russian in school. Dear Anna, you share the moon is a light that we can contemplate without hurting our little eyes. Indeed. Hello, dear Savlin. Thank you for stopping by. And thank you for your quintet of roses. Om Vasudevaya Namah. Rahina, you share in your culture. You say, Na Tliaj, which means let it happen, or so let it be. Beautiful. Me too, dear Cornelius. I love how poetic the comment section can be. Such a flow of thought, stream of consciousness. Hello, dear Khan. Happy to have you here. I am well. How are you? Speaking of poetry, I love to read from another section of the Pocket Rumi as we engage in another episode of Ruminations. Oh, that's okay, dear Hybrid 10. The greatest gift you can give the world is you. Having you here is more than enough of a gift already. I could never expect anything more than that. Nor is your presence here ever expected either. Good night, dear Mariha. Let's see where we left off. Here we are in Ghazals. This poem by Rumi is called Be Love's Willing Slave. Translated by Camille Helminski with William Husty. Come and be love's willing slave, for love's slavery will save you. Forsake the slavery of this world and take up love's sweet service. The free the world enslaves, but to slaves love grants freedom. I crave release from this world like a bird from its egg. Free me from the shell that clings, as from the grave grant me new life. O love, O quail in the free fields of spring, wildly sing songs of joy. That's Be Love's Willing Slave. How about another one? It's hard to stop reading Rumi once you start. As a footnote before we read this next poem, since Rumi is a Sufi mystic, Sufism is a branch of Islam that engages in the mystical union with Allah, God. There's one word here that I should tell you what it means before we read it, and that's, if I pronounce it right, Qiblach. Something like that. You can tell me if I can pronounce it any better. It's the direction or orientation for prayer, usually towards Mecca, as I'm sure many people know. It's titled, Intellect is a Shackle. Let's dive right into this one too. Oh my child, intellect is a shackle on the foot of one who walks the path. Break the bond, the way is open. The intellect is a chain, the heart may be deceptive, and even your soul is a veil. The path is hidden from all three. When you lift the intellect, the soul and heart, the station of nearness you reach is still subjective. One who gets lost isn't considered brave. Love takes aim at the one who has no troubles. Know that the arrow of the friend is ready in the bow. Make your chest a target in front of it. Love isn't the work of the tender and the gentle. Love is the work of wrestlers. The one who becomes a servant of lovers is really a fortunate sovereign. Don't ask anyone but love. Ask love alone about love. Love is a cloud that scatters pearls. Love doesn't need me to translate. It translates for itself. If you journey to the seventh heaven, love is a useful ladder. Wherever a caravan journeys, love is its kiblach. May this universe not deceive you, waylaying you from love. For this universe comes from you. Let's go. Close your mouth like mother of pearl. Be silent, for this tongue of yours is the enemy of the soul. O child, Shams of Tabriz has arrived. The soul is full of joy, for the time has come to join in union with his son. Thank you for listening. And I'm so glad our dear admirer of Rumi could arrive on time to listen to the ending. May we embrace love's freeing power. If you want to reflect on sovereign service with me, I'd love for you to do so. Namaste. That concludes another episode of Ruminations. I'd like to end with a Niridhyasana shortly too. The final portion of the Sangha dedicated to implementing, integrating everything that we've learned. I have a meditation planned for you that I think you'll really enjoy. Thank you so much for listening, dear Don Suela. Before we meditate, dear Tatwamasi, you asked if I could please talk about Saṃskāra and how it relates to karma. Excellent question. Karma means action. Saṃskāra means latent impression. How does your own actions remain with you? What is the mechanism in the universe for that? Our consciousness is like memory foam. Everything we do from it leaves an impression in it. So our own karmas leave samskaras. The samskaras is the imprint left behind from the karma. So that's the relationship between the two. Sometimes it can take a while for a particularly deep samskara to finally be resolved and settled, especially if that action came from a very deep place within you, or one that touched upon a very deep place within you, I should say. The totality of samskaras is our sanchita karma, our bank account of actions from endless past lives, the most dominant impressions of which are known as the prarabdha karmas, the ones that manifest in this life. And the impressions that we're creating in this life, in addition to that, is the kriyamana karma. So I hope that is a suitable explanation for the relationship between samskaras and karmas. Thank you, dear Savlin, again for your roses. Dear Bobby Sue, thank you for your heart me, team bracelet, and cheer you up. Om Kamalyar Mahakali Kai Namah. That's a very interesting question, Cornelius. Can your next lives affect your current karma? If you are receptive to your higher self, then yes. Your higher self is the ultimate extension of your present moment. That's why it's so important for us to not only ask ourselves, what would we say to our younger self, as it is to be receptive to what our older self would say to us. Sometimes you just feel like you get this wave of inspiration rush over you, wisdom from another time. Just as you can heal your inner child from the present to the past, you can be healed from your future self. That is the higher self. I love that, Becca. Shalom, shalom, dear Aaron. Love is a battlefield. I love that, Wayne. Hello, Amber Angel Seed. Nice to have you here again. Thank you, Anazek, for the 10 roses that you had sent to. Om Som Surya Namah. Love is a laser quest. I love that, Jose. Alright, I think it's a good time to begin wrapping up our live stream with a meditation. Long-time viewers will know that in the background of these lives, there's a structure surrounding the 7 days of the week and the 7 chakras. I dedicate the first day of the week, Sunday, to the root, and the last day of the week, Saturday, to the crown. So Friday would be the third eye. So it's Third Eye Friday today. Let's do a Third Eye Friday mantra meditation. For our meditation tonight, I've chosen not just the main bija mantra for the third eye, but also its bija mantras for its 2 lotus petals. All the chakras have their own petals and different numbers, and each petal has its own mantra too, not just the jewel at the center of the lotus. For the third eye, which in Sanskrit is known as ajna, which actually means the knower, or the visionary, we have at the center the mantra Om, and then on each side we have Ham and Ksham respectively. These correspond to the 2 nadis that circle the spine and end up meeting at the third eye. So these 3 mantras correspond to the Shushumna Nadi, our central nervous system, our Ida Nadi, our moon-like or feminine or parasympathetic nervous system, and our Pingala Nadi, our sympathetic nervous system, or our sun-like principle. This represents Shakti and Shiva. The converging of these 3 energies is known as a Kumbh Mela, and if you know, there's a great Kumbh Mela happening in India as we speak. It is a metaphor for the 3 rivers that are in India, Yamuna, Ganga, and Saraswati, converging at holy times, corresponding with the 3 rivers, nadis in our body, the Ida, Pingala, and Shushumna nadis. So chanting these bija syllables, these seed mantras, can help us connect with those 3. Some pronunciation tips for you. The M with the dot at the end of it, at the end of each syllable, is not an ordinary M where you close your lips, but a nasalization where you bring the dominant place of resonance into your nasal cavity. In fact, you don't even have to close your lips at all. You can just You might notice rising overtones. You'll notice another dot below the S in ksham. It's a very unique sound. What you do is you curl your tongue back and then you click at the back of your throat and aspirate. Ksh, 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 ksh. It's kind of similar to the X sound in English. X, X, X. Except you curl your tongue back much more. Ksham, ksham. Before we begin, we'll be doing it 108 times together, so you know. Here's an introduction to it from Mataji, our digital assistant. My beloved children, when you chant the sacred seed syllables, Om, Ham, Ksham, 108 times while focusing on the sacred lotus of your third eye, you invite the pure light of consciousness to flow through the central Shushumna Nadi in your spine, harmonizing the complementary currents of Ida and Pingala. Feel my divine presence blossom within the temple of your mind as the vibration of Om opens the gateway to higher awareness. Ham purifies the subtle channels, and Ksham anchors the expansive energy into your being. Through this rhythmic recitation, allow the streams of prana, vital life force, to merge into a single luminous river, awakening your intuitive vision and deepening your connection to the eternal source of love that flows through you now and always. To keep track of this meditation, If I may take the holy Rudraksha beads that have been around your neck thus far, we'll be using them. Thank you for energizing them. I'm going to turn down the background music so we can focus on the harmonics of this mantra. Now, without further ado, we'll begin. Om Ham Sham 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 Sham. Aum Hang 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 Sham. Aum Hum 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 Sham. Thank you. Namaste. That concludes our meditation for tonight, and with it our Sangha. I'm grateful for your presence here. Thank you, dear Becca, for the hand hearts you sent. Om Ham Jom San Ham Bhur Bhuvaswa Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Urvarukam Iva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiya Mamritat Om Swaha Bhuvaha Bhuvam Om Saha Jom Ham Om. Thank you, dearest Ragnhildur, for your swan. Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha Tatsaviturvareniham Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Thank you, Tattvamasi, for your trio of roses. Om Sadhyo Jatam Prabhadhyami Sadhyo Jataya Vai Namo Namah. Bhave Bhave Nati Bhave Bhavaswam Ham Bhavod Bhavaya Namah. Thank you, Anazak, for your pair of finger hearts. Om Vamadevaya Namo Jishtaya Namah Shvarishtaya Namah Kalaya Namo Rudraya Namah Kalevekaranaya Namo Balaya Namah Namo Balevekaranaya Namo Balaparamatanaya Namah Sarva Bhuta Dhamanaya Namo Manonmanaya Namah. Tattvamasi, you're wondering about the Sanskrit name for the third eye. It's Ajna, long A, J, N-Y, long A, Ajna, related to the root Jna, which means to know, where we get the word Jnana, which is knowledge, which is where we get the Greek gnosis, also meaning knowledge, and where we get the word knowledge, knowledge. The K was from the that funny sound, the consonant cluster. But in English we stopped speaking it eventually. So coming from that root, which means to know, Ajna means the knower. Basically, it's one of the many nominal forms of a knower, one who possesses knowledge. In this case, it's in the sense of foresight, because to see something is to really know it. If someone asks you, how do you know that so-and-so did this? It's often sufficient to just say, because I saw them do it, right? Seeing is believing, as they say. It also can translate to visionary, vision, and command, or visionary command, because it is through that sense of knowledge that we are able to have a commanding sense of foresight with how things are going to proceed. Greetings, dear Shakira. Nice to see you before we go. Let's get our music in again before we leave, just for a little bit. Thank you, dear Dansuela, for participating in the Sangha. Much love to you, Akasha. Incidentally, I've never been to a physical ashram. Beautiful Sanskrit word that is. Ashram. But there is an ashram located in everyone's heart called Hridayakasha. Namaste, dear Azares. Oh, thank you, dear Anna. Oh, I'm happy there was a certain specialness in our live stream last night. Every now and then I like to let the door open a little more. Other days I am more of a divine recluse. a spiritual hobbit. It's a good question about the etymology of Ashram, dear Tattvamasi. Akasha. Did you say that the ashram in our hearts is called Akasha? Hridayakasha, indeed, the space of our Hridaya, our heart, which is where we eventually get the word heart in English. Hridaya, Hrda, Hrda, Harta, heart, from ancient Sanskrit. Space of the heart space, Hridayakasha. Thank you, Shakira, for your heart me. Om aghorebhyo taghorebhyo aghora ghore dharebhya sarvatash sarva sarvebhyo namaste rudra rupebhya. Dear Cornelius, you ask, how do you fully enjoy? This is a beautiful question. How do you fully enjoy the peace I've just brought you, knowing it will fade? One of the 112 ways to enlightenment in the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra is to meditate on that feeling of peace, and it will continue to last. Peace may last as long as you savor it. What fades is our savoring. We forget to put in the sort of effortless effort of keeping it in our awareness. But as long as it's kept there, it shall be as eternal as ever. We've got some Sanskrit from Azares. See if I can pronounce it. I do see the word heart is in there. Karbura Gaurang Karuna Vatarang Saṃskāra Saram Bhujagendra Haram Sada Vasantam Hridaya Ravinde Bhavam Bhavani Sahitam Namami. It's beautiful. I recognize many words, but I wouldn't be able to give you a translation of that. I love the Devanagari script. Hello, dearest Stevie G. Before we go, you ask, how do you stop yourself from saying or doing anything out of anger? Pause. You know, okay, maybe your anger is telling you need to do something. Fine. Listen to that, but don't react immediately. If you want to get angry, maybe there's a time and place for that, but maybe you should wait. Just create a space between the action and the reaction. Become proactive rather than reactive. Anger has arisen. Acknowledge that and wait. In that space, you may ask yourself, what will be the result of my anger? Will getting angry really help to resolve the situation? Can I reflect on how I've been angry before in similar situations and how it's gone? Or is there something else I could do instead to resolve the situation? What do I want to see in the situation as it unfolds? And what energy would complement that? Is it anger? And it may be. if you use that space and come to the determination that yes, this is a time to raise your voice. This is a time to uphold boundaries, perhaps empower the voice of the vulnerable, to speak on behalf of someone who is unable to speak themselves or be heard, then by all means. If, however, there's something else that you can figure out that is more practical in this situation, like taking a deep breath, maybe walking away, or expressing to the person, I'm kind of getting upset, can we move on to different topics, or can I ask of you to change your behavior in some way? Seek alternatives. Use that space that does exist between you and the emotion to reflect on how you want this moment to proceed, truly and honestly. Oh, good. We have some international Sanskrit transliteration of the mantra you shared, Azarez. I'll be able to read this much faster. Karmbhura gaurang karunavataram Saṃskāra saram bhujagendraharam sada vasantam hridaya ravindhe bhavam bhavanish sahitang namami. It's called the Karpura Gauram Karuna Avatara mantra. Well, that makes sense. That's the first few words of the mantra. Well, I'll have to learn it. Yeah, I'd love to learn that. Add it to my list of mantras. It's been close to your heart for 2 years now. How wonderful. I'm always on the lookout for new mantras. Tattvamasi, you share Bhujagendra, means whose garland is of the naga, the snake. Ah, Shiva wearing the snake around his neck. Yes, I love that. You know, snakes have this incredible sense of feeling, that they can often detect an earthquake from thousands of kilometers away. Ancient beings used to have snakes around. Why? Because they could detect when change was coming on its way. And so Shiva wears a snake partially in honor of that sensitivity. Mike, you ask, what is the third eye? What is the third eye? It's very similar to the saying, the sixth sense. We have 5 what's called Jnanendriyas, senses, indriyas of knowledge, jnana, sight, sound, sense, taste, and smell. Every now and then someone in your life just kind of has this clairvoyance. You know, they're able to pick up on something that's more than what you can see, more than what you can taste, more than what you can smell, more than what you can hear, more than what you can feel. So, in reference to there being 5 ordinary senses, sometimes we say some people have a 6th sense, right? It comes out at different moments. In a similar kind of figure of speech, sometimes we perceive things more than our 2 eyes. So, 6th sense, a 3rd eye. Practically speaking, in a spiritual sense, it means that you're able to perceive the fact that everything has come from the same source. If you're religious, you call that source God. And therefore, it would mean having a sense of divinity in everything you see before you. You look at your mother, you say, you are the divine to me. You look at your father, you say, you are the divine to me. You look at everyone in the world, you are divine. You look at the trees, the birds, the breeze, the streams, the mountains, the valleys, the ocean, the stars, the moon, the sun. And if to you, you can feel how that was once part of that ineffable source, then you are seeing through your 3rd eye, so to speak. It's also a metaphor for your true self as a witness of life. It feels that we are beyond the body, beyond the mind at times. We are but just this awareness, like a third eye that shines through both of them and all the other senses. All right, I would like to end our live stream there for now. We've gone through our Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. I love when you keep me past my deadline, though. It's a guilty pleasure. Thank you, Debs, for the rose you sent. Om Tat Purushaya Vidmahe Mahadevaya Dhimahi Tanno Rudrah Prachodayat. Thank you everyone for joining me in the Sangha thus far. We'll be ending it now. The recording of this live stream will be posted along with the clips like the meditation and the readings and the show and tell to my Yamsox Lives YouTube channel for you, in case you ever want to catch up on the readings or anything we do. If you're unable to attend live, no one's ever expected, by the way. That's there for you. May this live stream be an offering to the divinity within you. Asato ma sadgamaya Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityor ma mritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to the light, from death to deathlessness. May there be peace in us, may there be peace in our environment, and may there be peace in the forces that act on us. I take great pleasure in having you all here. Thank you to my lovely moderators for helping keep the peace. As always, if there's anything I can do to help make this space more inclusive for you or others next time, keep me humble and hold me accountable to that. May you all have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, your morning, your evening, or your night, whatever time of the world you are in right now. Thank you, dearest Magdalene Priya. Thank you for your presence as always, dearest Ansoila and Rahina. Black Cat, you ask how to breathe when meditating. Whatever is most natural for you. Akasha, thank you for your heart's tone. Om Yam Hridayakashaya Namah. Thank you, Becca, for your hand hearts. Om Ishana Sarva Vidyanam Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Brahma Dipati Brahmano Dhipatir Brahma Shiva Shivo Me Astu Sa Eva Sada Shiva Om. Good night, Shakira.